The Hawks, after a very surprising run, were eliminated in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals, though this run actually isn't quite as surprising as many people make it out to be, because I do believe this Hawks team was just genuinely this good. Honestly, I believe this Hawks team is closer towards the leap towards being a contender than a lot of other people might believe. Right now, the Hawks are a good playoff team, like a really good playoff team, but just not quite contender. And because this roster is relatively young, I could see people expecting or even thinking this team should be complacent, but I strongly disagree. I think just like the Hawks did last offseason when they decided to be aggressive in pursuit of being a playoff team again, I think they should be aggressive in pursuit of becoming a contender either this year or next. So let's talk about what I guess I envision to be the future of the Atlanta Hawks. Let's talk about it. I already said that once. Why'd I say it twice? I'm not gonna reshoot the line. Whatever, let's go. Before I continue on with this video, about half of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed, so if you fall into that 50%, then please subscribe. I'm trying to hit 200K on this channel by the end of the year, so your subscription would be much appreciated. Also, drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference. Okay, so what I mean by them being aggressive towards becoming a contender is, well, I think that they should try at least get in the position to trade for a star player. Not necessarily do it this very offseason, but definitely within the next year or two max. As good as the Hawks were this year, for the most part, this team would live and die by Trae Young. I know the Hawks had the game 4 that they did, but for the most part, if this team had a bad Trae Young game, the team had a bad Trae Young game. If Trae had a good game, the Hawks had a good game. You get what I mean. The shot creation on this team, while better than I originally thought, especially with Kevon Huerter being really fantastic. Did I just unironically call him Kevon? While it is not bad outside of Trae Young, the shot creation that is, I do think it could be quite a bit better. I also think the playmaking could be better, and while Trae and the heliocentric offense that the Hawks run, yes, I said heliocentric again, it's been a while, so it feels good. While it hasn't been as big of a problem as I expected it to be in the playoffs, it still is something that I think will hold them back from going all the way to the contender level. It got them to really, really good playoff team level, but to actually reach the peak, I do think that needs to be addressed. So in terms of what kind of star player you would want to get, ideally it would be somebody who can create their own shot, but then can also be a ball handler and secondary playmaker to Trae, so that Trae can do more off the ball work. That's kind of what Bogdan Bogdanovic did this year a little bit, but I'd like to take that to a further extreme. I think getting away from this heliocentric offense, still a lot of Trae Young, but not just only Trae Young, I think would make the difference between you being in the Eastern Conference Finals and you winning the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, before we get into actual trade stuff, it is worth mentioning there is 2 important things for the Hawks this offseason. Well, really one that's important for this offseason, but another thing that's just worth noting. The first one that's just worth noting is that DeAndre Hunter is coming back, and I really believe in the potential of DeAndre Hunter. I understand that he is 23 years old already, going into his 3rd season, because he spent a couple of years in college, but I honestly believe he is going to be, at the bare minimum, one of the best 3-and-D forwards in the league. Last year, in limited time, granted, he averaged a pretty efficient 15 points per game while being a really good, versatile, large wing who can defend multiple positions and showing some ability to create off of the dribble, especially in the mid-range. You get him back, if he just replicates that same production that he had in those like 28 or whatever games last season, then I believe you have a very, very valuable player added to your team just from being healthy. They made this run for the most part without Hunter. He played a good amount in the Knicks series and a little bit in the Sixers series, but even then he wasn't the same offensively, just a really good defensive piece. So health, time, all that, I think is going to make a big difference for him. And the other thing that's really important for this offseason specifically is bringing back John Collins or not bringing back John Collins, which is honestly what I lean towards. A lot of people have been saying that John Collins in this playoff proved that he is worth the money that he's asking for, but I could not disagree more. While Collins definitely wasn't bad in this playoffs by any means, he also proved to me from a game-to-game basis to really not be that important in terms of this team's success. Of course, he's had good games and bad games, but for the most part, other than being a lob threat, hitting like one face-up mid-range shot a game and like a corner three, he's not bringing much offensively. Defensively, he's taken a big leap, but even then, would I pay him more than $25 million to average 13 points and play solid defense, grab 8 rebounds? I don't think I would. The Hawks offense has stepped away from being all that crazy pick and roll heavy to being more perimeter based stuff, or not necessarily just pick and roll, but just their offense is based more around the perimeter rather than giving Collins post opportunities or dump off plays at the basket. For the most part, the way that Collins scores isn't as big of a part of the Hawks offense, and even then the way that he scores is pretty well replicated by Clint Capella in terms of the pick and roll action, so they don't even really need him for that. Honestly, I would just not give him more than like maximum $25 million, and even then I'd feel not that comfortable paying him more than 20, so that's a whole thing. I just don't think that John Collins is as important to this Hawks team as many people have made him out to be. I think they would be pretty fine without him, and I think like DeAndre Hunter in at the power forward spot next year would be fine. I would maybe try and sign and trade for him because he is young, and under the right circumstances, he can be like an efficient 20 points per game. It's just those circumstances aren't really there with the Hawks anymore. But now let's talk about a star trade. What do the Hawks have in terms of assets? Well, DeAndre Hunter, who I mentioned earlier, Cam Reddish, who had that amazing Game 6 and still has a lot of upside, Onyeka Okongwu, who I think is going to be very good in the NBA, and Kevin Huerter as the young players that they could trade. And they have pretty much all of their picks with some potential salary fillers. And again, they could do a John Collins sign and trade. Probably slap that on top of whatever young players you package for whatever player you're trading for. Now, there's not some standout, oh yeah, this is going to be a really good young piece, but there's enough stuff there, along with the fact that you have your picks, that there is definitely a world where you can trade for some of the best players in the league. Now, unfortunately, the market trade-wise isn't amazing. While there's a lot of names that could potentially be available, there's no clear, oh yeah, this guy is about to be available, when there tends to be that pretty much every year. As a result of that, I don't have any specific moves. All I know for sure is that they have quite a bit of assets and they're in the position as a roster to make this kind of trade. But I can throw some names out there for the sake of it. Cat would be cool, though I would like to see them keep Capella around, so that'd be a little bit disappointing in that regard. Sabonis could be available in like a season or two from now, though again, Capella. Sexton is a bad idea because of his size with Trey, and I also just don't think he's that great. Beal is always someone who's been floated around. If the Blazers ended up trading Dame, then you could definitely get CJ, and you could do a sign and trade for DeMar DeRozan. And by the way, I don't think Dame and Trey would work at all, so I wouldn't even suggest that. It's just completely redundant, though it would definitely be good. These are all ideas. I feel like a DeMar DeRozan sign and trade is like probably the most realistic one that could happen this offseason because he is a free agent right now. But ultimately, it's just going to be the matter of the Hawks have the assets to make a big trade. They have the roster to accommodate a star player and keep them happy and keep them around long term, because I think as soon as you get a star player, like a bona fide all-star caliber guy, you reach that contender level. Maybe not DeMar DeRozan or Domantas Sabonis, or definitely not fucking Colin Sexton, but if you get like a Beal or a Karl Anthony Towns or something like that, you would immediately leap towards being a contender, and I'm pretty sure those star players would be happy with that. So the Hawks are a desirable team for a star player to be traded to. They have the assets to make a trade happen. They're in the right position to make said trade. It wouldn't be interrupting anything, really. And ultimately, we just have to wait and see, because I think this is what they should do. I think they're in the position to do it. So I hope that's what they do. You just got to go for it when the time is eventually right. If that's now or 2 years from now, I'm not sure. All I know is that's what should be in their future. So that's what I think is next for the Hawks. I will say, just ultimately as a Hawks fan, you should not be disappointed at all after this year's playoff run. Your team went further than expected. This was a borderline Cinderella level run. I don't think that this is as big of a surprise as some people made it out to be, but still a little bit surprising for sure. I did tweet that I thought they could make the Eastern Conference Finals, but I don't remember saying that, so I don't know how much credit I can take for that. But the point is, this Hawks roster can really only go up from here, so just look forward to that. Well, unless you pull like a 2019 Celtics, so don't do that, but you get my point. Anyways, shout out to Rudy for editing this video. That is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe from NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.